Chapter 16. Jack! Philip called to him, politely waiting until his mouth was clear to speak. I quite forgot to mention something. While I was slaying the giant, a bag that I would hazard a guess to be yours fell from the sky and landed right at my feet, if you can believe such a thing. At that, he held up Jack's grandfather's bag. Jack nodded, not able to contain a dirty look. Right, he said. Sorry about that. I couldn't hold on to it while falling to my death. How completely rude of me. May I have it back? Of course, the prince said, tossing the bag over to Jack. The bag landed perfectly in Jack's hands, then dropped to the ground when Jack fumbled it. He laughed. Nice catch, she said. I've had a rough day, he replied moodily, grabbing the broomstick and stuffing it into the infinitely large bag. Not many men can live through a giant swallowing them, princess, Philip said, as he carefully chose a piece of fruit from his sack. You have my respect, young Jack. Princess? Jack whispered to her. So you're only denying that to peasants now, huh? She actually blushed at that. Okay, she whispered back. Now it's stupid and ridiculous and all, but come on, you have to give me this. He's a real-life prince. And besides, like you said, if Snow White's my grandmother, then I'm sort of royalty too, right? Of course, Jack said, but... Suddenly he froze, his eyes widening. May, you didn't tell that idiot about your grandmother, did you? She snorted. I'm not stupid. I'm supposed to keep everything a secret. Now, I just told him that I've got some royalty in the family. And quit judging me. I'm a poseur. She smiled at that like it was a joke. I'm assuming that doesn't mean what I think it does, Jack said, his eyes narrowed to slits as he watched the prince daintily break off another piece of bread. This guy just irritates me. So he slays giants. Who doesn't? May started to say something snarky in reply, then stopped and looked at Jack closely. Jack, she said, are you? You are! You're jealous! She seemed shocked. He managed to pull up an equally shocked look. Jealous? Of what? A prince? You must have hit your head. Royals are completely self-absorbed and make life a nightmare for the rest of us. Have I been unclear about how much I dislike them? May gave him a suspicious look. Then you'd be okay if Philip and I go it alone from here? After all, if I've got a prince who can slay giants to help me, that's all I need, right? Jack rolled his eyes. Maybe. If you want to die horribly. Trust me, I'm not letting the two of you handle what's probably the most important rescue in history. May smiled that little half-smile that Jack was beginning to despise. Whatever you say, hero, she said, then twirled around and lightly ran over to Philip, waving her hands delicately at her sides. She spun around when she reached the prince, curtsied to Jack, then sat down and stuck out her tongue. Jack never hated her more. Gradually, he forced himself to walk over to the two of them. So, he said to Philip, it's good that the giant fell forward, eh? Otherwise, he might have landed on us. You know, killing us all. That might have been bad, huh? The prince waited until he was done chewing as Jack tapped his foot impatiently. No, he would not have fallen on us, the prince said finally. I do know what I am doing, after all. But you are quite right. If he had landed on us, it might have ended badly. Yes, quite right, May said, imitating the prince. We might have been crushed into little gooey pancakes, which very well could have ruined tea. Do you mock me, princess? The prince asked with a raised eyebrow and a gentle smile. Why would I do that when you're doing so well on your own? The princess replied sweetly. Jack eyed them both, then sat down between them. I'm pretty sure there's enough mocking going on for everyone, he said. Let's all just scoot over and make some room here, all right? May started to respond, but something behind him caught her attention. Jack, she asked as she stared at whatever it was. He glared at her. What, your highness? So, where'd you get the sword? Jack threw a look over his shoulder. There, plain as day, was the hilt of the knight's sword, sitting securely in the scabbard strapped to Jack's shoulder. What sword? Jack asked. The princess stared at him. Are we really going to play that game? Jack frowned. That sword? I got it inside the giant. One of her eyebrows raised. Of course you did, she said. I take it there was a shop just behind his teeth then? Jack stared pointedly at the ground in front of him. Not exactly, he said. I just found it. It probably got stuck in there. You know, in the giant's mouth when he ate someone. That is quite the sword, young Jack, the prince said, leaning back to examine it. In fact, it looks almost familiar. Jack gritted his teeth. How old are you? He asked Philip. Pardon me? The prince said, leaning forward again. How old are you? Jack repeated. I am 15 years old, the prince replied. Then you're not much older than me, your highness, Jack growled. Can you try not calling me young Jack? The prince looked surprised. I meant no offense, my friend. Jack started to protest the friend part too. But May reached over and put a hand on his arm to calm him. He swallowed his comment and glared at them both. So how did you two find yourselves here? The prince asked, apparently oblivious to the hostility emanating from Jack. We're on our way to the Black Forest, May said before Jack had elbowed her to keep quiet. He elbowed her anyway, so she elbowed him back, a lot harder than necessary. The Black Forest? Philip asked. A look of concern crossed his face. That's hardly the place for a princess. It's a secret quest, Jack said dismissively. We can't really talk about it. We're looking for my grandmother, May said. Jack dropped his head into his hands. What part of Secret Quest were you not clear on? Whose grandmother is it? Jack threw her a dirty look. Exactly, May said, then turned back to Philip. My grandmother was kidnapped from my castle. I was taken too, but I escaped. And here we are. She told me to go to the Black Forest to find help. So that's where we're going. A worthy quest, Philip said, his eyes burning with passion. For such a goal, I cannot help but offer my full assistance. The prince paused, his eyes sparkling. That is, if you'll have me. Oh, we've already got too much assistance as it is, Jack started to say, but May quickly interrupted him. Of course we could use your help, she said. Jack seems to have forgotten about the enormous guy chasing us. She smiled sweetly at Jack, which just made things worse, then turned back to the prince. Besides, you seem pretty useful, you Prince Toad. I welcome the opportunity to exhibit more useful behavior, the prince said, bowing low at the waist. Jack rolled his eyes. No, seriously, we wouldn't want to take you away from whatever it is you're doing, he said. The prince shook his head. The giant is slain, and since I cannot return, since my only task is to avenge my father by slaying the giant who murdered him, I must seek out more giants. That means I may travel where I will, and with whom I would.